Hi, my name is Dr. Joel Luke, and today I'm going to introduce a paper that we've recently published in Sale Reports Physical Science. I'm at Imperial College, and this was done in collaboration with Specific at Swansea, particularly with Andrew Clark, with whom I co-authored the paper. So an organic solar cell is something that converts the energy of the sun to electricity via the photovoltaic effect, and it uses organic molecules to absorb the sunlight. Usually we use a blend of a donor polymer and a small molecule acceptor. And by using these organic materials, it gives us some really interesting properties. They can be flexible, they can be lightweight, which allows for really good integration into buildings and structures, like the carport here in the tree. We can also change the colour, and we can make them semi-transparent, which allows for integration into windows, vehicles and buildings. And we can manufacture them with roll-to-roll printing processes. So in theory, you can print large areas for very low cost. So that all sounds pretty good. But what about the efficiency? That's also pretty good. We're up to 18% now, which, although it lags behind other technologies, is becoming up to a competitive standard. And the big problem really though is that the stability of these materials isn't so good. And so when you compare it to, say, a silicon solar cell, which can last for decades, there's a lot of work to do in this area. So in this paper, I'm interested in trying to improve the stability of some of the materials we use, or at least to understand how they degrade. So in this paper, the first thing we do is look at the device stability. And to do this, we fabricate some devices, then we shine solar irradiation or simulated solar irradiation, and then measure the efficiency as a function of illumination time. And what we did was to make a large range of devices with lots of different materials and two acceptor families, IDTBR and ITIC. And in the devices, we find that the ITIC containing devices degrade quite rapidly compared to the IDTBR. And to understand why this is happening, we do some more electrical characterization and find that there's trap formation in the device as we age it under solar illumination. And so what we want to know is, why is there trap formation in the ITIC devices and not the IDTBR devices? So to investigate this in a bit more detail, we look at the stability of the individual materials themselves. And so if we illuminate the materials under one sun and then look at the absorption spectra after degradation, we can see that the IDTBR doesn't change at all, which means that these materials are very photostable. Whereas if we look at the ITIC acceptors, we see this bleaching of the absorption, which is telling us that there is some kind of degradation happening at a molecular level. And to characterize this in a bit more detail, we use Raman spectroscopy, which is a vibrational spectroscopy that's sensitive to the vibrations in a molecule between the atoms, and we can learn about the structure of our degradation product. So now we've got our Raman spectra of our degradation product. We wanted to see what that was, what is the origin of this degradation product. And so we did some simulations, and you can simulate the Raman spectra of the molecule with different degradation products. And what we find is that our experimental spectra suggests that there is some kind of conformational change or even loss of the end groups of the ITIC, which you can see highlighted in the molecule above. And so by pinpointing this location of degradation as the end groups, and as this particular bond between the end groups and the core, this allows us to think about ways in which we can improve the stability of this particular material. And then, if we can improve the stability of this particular material, we can then improve the stability of the devices that we showed earlier. This particular material, we can then improve the stability of the devices that we showed earlier. And so, in conclusion, The intrinsic non-fullerene acceptor photostability is critical for device stability. So basically, the devices are degrading because ITIC is not very stable towards illumination. And if we were to stop this conformational change, or change these end groups, we may be able to make the material more stable and make more stable devices. If you want to find out more, you can follow the link below to read the paper. It's open access, so available to everyone. To take this study further, what we want to do is to look at different types of ITIC. So we looked at 2 different types of ITIC and found they behaved quite similarly. But we can modify the end group in quite a lot of different ways, and we want to see how this affects the photostability of the material, and then how that might affect the device stability in turn. We also want to see how our results correlate to more recent reports on the photo-induced isomerization of ITIC, which is shown to be a degradation process, and you can follow the reference if you want more details on that. And this is fairly consistent with our reports of a conformational change. For there to be an isomerization, there first has to be kind of a conformational change, then a cis-trans isomerization, and so all this requires quite a lot of molecular motion. And so we think this is fairly consistent with what we found as well. And with that, I'd like to say thanks for watching, and thank you to our funders and the rest of my group who helped with this work. And if you want to find out more, you can follow the links below or find us on Twitter @nanoimperial.